Hey. Time for another Out of This World story from rSpace. They say distance makes the heart grow fonder, but sometimes it just makes people forget what they were holding on to in the first place. Today on rSpace, 18 months apart didn't test the marriage. It exposed exactly how little was holding it together. Long distance wife cheated on me for fun, so I sent her packing and took everything from her. I, 35 male, have been married to my wife, 32 female, Kayla, for 5 years now. I've had bad relationships in the past and started to lose my faith in women, but when I met her, it felt like none of that mattered. Now I realize that loyalty really is a myth, and I don't think I can ever trust a woman again. She's broken my heart in ways that I didn't expect, and that I absolutely didn't deserve. When I met Kayla, I was working in a tech role, but I always mentioned to her how I would love to further specialize in a certain discipline. She knew that. It took a while, but I finally got admitted into an 18-month master's program at a top university, and this certainly wasn't something that I blindsided her with. She knew that I always wanted to go back to school, and she was always in support of it, including when it actually happened for me. Now, we have been living in our current residence for the entire time that we've been married. We bought it and have been paying off the mortgage steadily since then. I think it is more my dream house than it is for her, especially because the neighborhood is one that I've always loved. When I got accepted to the master's program, I hoped that she would come with me, but I understand when she said she didn't want to. 18 months isn't too long in the grand scheme of things, but I can understand her not wanting to uproot her life for over a year, because her work and her friends were all there. So, I let it go and said she could stay back, and either of us could travel to see the other as much as possible. At no point did it seem like our proposed arrangement was going to be a problem. Later on, we made it such that we'd alternate who did the traveling so that it wouldn't be too much consistent stress on one person. She had no issue with that at all. Unfortunately, things started to fall apart several months in, and that is when I started to suspect things. We were taking trips to each other roughly every month, though sometimes the visits would be 5 or 6 weeks after the last. It felt like we were making the temporary long distance work in our favor. It was when I was about 10 months into my program that things started to fall apart. I was busy dealing with school, and it was always great to be able to speak to my wife at the end of the day, but I realized that she started being available less often than usual. I asked her what was going on the first time it happened, because I was concerned, and she said that she was a bit under the weather, which sort of made sense. However, even after she told me that she was better, she was inexplicably absent sometimes, and on top of that, her energy just seemed very different. My mind didn't jump straight to cheating, but I knew that something was going on with her, and she wasn't being honest about whatever it might have been. I knew that something was very wrong when she forgot that it was her turn to come and see me. I had a very serious talk with her, pointing out everything that I had spotted and how something was definitely going on with her, but she kept insisting that it was all fine. That was very frustrating to me, since it was painfully obvious that she was keeping something from me and she wasn't acting normal. I knew that I'd love to get to the bottom of things one way or another, and since she didn't seem to be eager about coming over to me that time around, I decided I'd go back home to see her. I was pissed off at her, but a big part of me was very concerned. When you know someone long enough, you don't expect any surprises in their behavior, so for her to switch up so much, I was scared that she might have been going through something serious. I didn't let her know that I was returning home. I just appeared on the weekend, and fortunately for me, I met her at home. To say she was shocked to see me was an understatement. The only problem is, for some people, when you see someone you weren't expecting to see after so long, you scream and jump into their arms. In her case, it was like seeing me as a damper on her day, though she tried to hide it. She kept asking why I didn't let her know I was coming. She claimed it would have been nice because she could have cooked something for me ahead of my arrival. She didn't like cooking enough to have convinced me with that. The reaction from her was what I needed to know, that there was certainly something happening, and I made sure that I was going to find out what it was before I returned to university, because if I didn't, I'd end up torturing myself with anxiety and overthinking. After I had been there for about an hour, things seemed to return to normal. She started to warm up to me. I suppose because the shock of my arrival had worn off. It wasn't enough for me to take my suspicions off of her, though. I knew something was amiss, and I was going to find some opportunity to snoop and find out. Sure, I could have just tried to ask her, but she had lied so many times before, claiming that everything was all right when I knew it wasn't. I couldn't trust her not to get even more guarded if I revealed that I was on her tail. I wanted to do my investigating that night, but it seemed too soon, and I wasn't confident that she was going to sleep soundly, so I waited until the next night. At that point, I think she was acting completely normal with me, but I didn't let that dissuade me. Once she was asleep that night, I grabbed her MacBook and decided to go through her messages there instead of using her phone. I thought that I was going to have to do a whole lot of digging to find out who my wife was cheating on me with, but it wasn't even close to that difficult. I found the answer in mere seconds because he was the last person that she messaged before she went to bed. It was a guy called Marco. The last conversation they had wasn't that crazy because they were just talking about something that had happened during his day. However, it was when I kept reading that it became obvious. A few hours after I had gotten back home, she had texted him in a pretty bitter tone, talking about how I'd shown up out of nowhere and ruined their plans. They weren't explicit about what those plans were, but I assumed they were intimate plans, because there was some very lewd texting from literally the day before. From the way they were talking, it was clear that these were two people who had slept together multiple times. I wanted to stop reading, I really did, but I had to keep going, because I needed to know how long it had been going on for. Unsurprisingly, it was right about when things had started to change between us. It was about 9 months after I had moved from my master's. That was the halfway mark, and what was left for my course was less than a year, but she couldn't hold herself. She had to go and sleep with someone else because she was lonely, according to the text, and because she was looking for some fun. The only reason I know that latter part is because the guy made a reference to what was in her Tinder profile after they moved to iMessage. Now I know that not only was my wife cheating on me, but she was so serious about it after I left that she set up a dating profile. I started to question myself so much because I couldn't understand what I had done wrong. I'm not perfect, but I certainly haven't been a bad husband by any measure. I've always been open to feedback and learning the things that I can do better. I was so sad, yet I was angry at the same time. Do you know what it feels like to confirm that the reason your wife has been distant is because she was having an affair? I've always wanted to get a master's and specialize, and that was something I was doing for myself. But the better life that would have come out of that would have been something we both would have enjoyed. She couldn't sacrifice 18 months without me there before she chose to go and sleep with someone else. Since I was on her laptop, I was able to explore the entire conversation pretty easily. I didn't realize this at the time, but when I was going through the messages later, I realized that she had forgotten that it was her turn to visit me because she had made plans with Marco. I had to sit with my thoughts until morning. Obviously, I didn't get a wink of sleep. I was just thinking about how the marriage I had cherished so much was going to have an end. There was no explanation or no way that things were going to work, and that was sad for me. As soon as she woke up and came downstairs, I confronted her. "You didn't remember to come and visit me because you were cheating on me with Marco." I intentionally laid it out that way because I didn't want there to be any reason for her to say I didn't know what I was talking about. The way I had laid it out made it perfectly obvious to her that I knew what she had done. She had nothing to say to that. She looked scared and slowly walked up to me and put her hand on my arm. She managed to say, "I'm sorry." That was so quiet that I don't even count it as her saying anything. She never thought she was going to get caught, so she had no idea what to do now that I had caught her. I asked her why she did it. She started crying and tried to hug me, but I pushed her away. I asked her again why she did it, and she managed to croak out that she was lonely and she missed my touch. I told her that if she missed my touch, she wouldn't have substituted it with another man's. She wouldn't have missed her opportunity to come and see me and get me to actually touch her. She was lying through her teeth. I told her as much. I told her that she wanted to cheat, and she had zero remorse before I confronted her about it, and everything fell apart. If she had gotten away with it, as soon as I returned from school, she would have gone right back to him. I told her that we were going to get a divorce, and that there was really no way around it. She started crying even more at that point. While her crying used to always be able to move me, it had no chance this time around. Every time I thought of the fact that there was someone else on top of her and she loved it, I hated her a little bit more. I knew there was nothing left for us. I told her that it wasn't all a loss for her because she still had the other guy. I didn't have anyone to run to when things ended. That's basically where we found ourselves. I didn't listen to any of the begging that she had to do, and I took a flight back to school as soon as I could. It was going to be almost impossible for me to enforce her not staying in the house while I was several states away, so I didn't bother. But I'm going to make sure that the house ends up mine no matter what. I need to make sure she feels half of the pain that I felt, because she won't be able to take it. Meanwhile, I'd love advice from anyone as to how I can navigate this entire situation. I don't want to mess up or misstep in any way. I want to make sure I do everything in the best way possible. I was lonely? It's a pretty weak excuse for blowing up a marriage. You didn't leave for 18 months to party. You were working toward a better future for both of you. Instead of supporting that, she used that time apart to start a whole other relationship. The fact that she was annoyed you showed up unannounced says a lot. And then missing her turn to visit you because she had plans with him? Yeah, She made her choice, and it wasn't you. Update. You don't know how stressful it is to deal with a divorce while you're also dealing with a master's program. If I didn't hate Kayla before, having to be in school in one state and jetting over to divorce proceedings in another state was enough for me to hate her. Even worse is the fact that she didn't let the divorce end as soon as it could. She dragged it on and made it incredibly stressful for me. According to my lawyer, it was probably a tactic to tire me of the whole process and try to get me to just to settle. That wasn't going to happen. The first part where she really tried to stress me out was with alimony. I knew that even with evidence of her cheating, it was going to be hard for her to get no alimony whatsoever. So my aim was for the alimony to be at the level that I was comfortable with. However, she wanted a lot more than was reasonable, and that pissed me off. She has a job. We couldn't settle on a number for that. After that, it was the house. Perhaps it was too obvious how much I wanted to keep the house. We live in a very good neighborhood. It's obvious she won't be able to afford the mortgage on her own, which is one reason I didn't want her to have the house. I also didn't want to sell it and split the profit either. Another reason why I wanted to make sure the house ended up with me was that I knew she couldn't afford to live anywhere reasonably close, and that was going to be a big problem for her getting to her workplace. Either she'd have to do a commute that would stress her out, or she'd have to let go of the job entirely. Either one of those was good for me. We couldn't agree though, so I had to go in front of a judge. That pissed me off so much because I didn't need the process to go on any longer than it needed to, but I refused to just capitulate and let her get her way, especially because she was the one who cheated on me. Fortunately for me, the judge sort of ruled in my favor. I say sort of because it didn't work out for me perfectly. However, I got the house, which is what I really wanted. However, to balance things, she had to get something, so I had to give her my car. If I hadn't, I would have had to make substantial monthly payments to her, and that's the last thing I wanted. I'm still making alimony payments, but they're not as large as they might have been if I had to include her half of the house. That works so much better for me, even though I'd prefer not to have any reason to be tied to her for the next several years. Eventually, we settled everything. I think I came out on top, though at the same time, she definitely got way more than she deserved. I hate how little infidelity plays a role in the divorce settlements in some states. I mean, we wouldn't even be getting divorced if it weren't for the fact that she was sleeping around. Anyway, I had to go back to school, which was at least something to help take my mind off the situation. I haven't even finished this course, though I'm very close to it now. I was planning on waiting until I was done to get back at her, but she forced my hand when a mutual friend came to us, talking about the divorce, and said that we shouldn't have let distance get between us like that. I had to gently pry to find out what the person was told. Apparently, Kayla was telling people that the distance got too stressful for us, and that was the big reason why we decided to separate. That pissed me off because it made us seem childish, and because it wasn't the truth. I set the record straight with the person right away, and from that point, I decided that I was going to let everyone know what the truth was, regardless of whether she had told them her side of things or not. I had to expose her to everyone, something I hadn't necessarily planned to do before. That part was super fun for me. I got to draft a message, include the most scandalous aspects of her conversations with Marco, and then send it to everyone. It took only a few minutes after I did that for everyone to start sending messages my way. A bunch of people wanted to know if what I was alleging was true. Some people mentioned that she had told them something completely different, and I let them know the only reason she told them that lazy story was because she didn't want to look bad. I even sent the message to her parents. They were clearly pissed with me for doing that, but I could tell that her dad couldn't be fully angry at me. He understood that I wasn't the one in the wrong in the whole thing. But Kayla? Needless to say, she was the most pissed off of anyone. She called me way too many times, and when I finally picked up, she nearly deafened me. She said I had no right to say that to anyone. She said I was spreading out dirty laundry, and it was meant to be a private issue between the two of us. I told her that was true, but she had made the mistake of telling people a fake story, and I had to set the record straight because her story made us look like a very foolish people. What kind of people, married as long as we had been, would get divorced over needing to stay apart for 18 months? All I did was set the record straight to the public, because there was no way I could have known everyone she told her fake story to. It was during that rant that she said I was trying to ruin her life. She said she had to get another job because it didn't make sense for her to keep commuting from the new place that she got. She said I didn't need to keep the house, and I just did it to annoy her. I admitted that I made sure I got the house not just because I really wanted it, but because I knew it'd make things harder for her. She cursed me out at that point, and I just laughed at her. I told her that her payments would show up monthly, as expected, and if she had to reach out to me, she knew my email. After that, I hung up the phone and blocked her. She's been blocked since then, and things have been a little more peaceful for me. At this point, I'm just going to focus on my course. I can make sure that I get the better life that I want, and her seeing everything that she messed out on because of her impulses will be a part of my revenge. I wish her the worst, and I hope that I can get to a point where I can trust women again. I really hope so. Going through a divorce while in the middle of a master's program sounds exhausting, and it's clear Kayla made it as difficult as possible. Dragging out the process, fighting over alimony, and trying to leave the house when she couldn't afford it wasn't about what was fair. It was about making things harder for you. As for her telling people the breakup was just about the distance, I don't blame you for setting the record straight. She didn't want to look bad, but that doesn't mean you have to take the blame for her choices. If your partner had to be away for 18 months to chase a big career or educational goal, would you see it as a test of commitment or an excuse to start over? Let us know in the comments below. And thank you for joining us today on rSpace. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. See you next time.